Shalom Aleichem, it's Ya'kov Shepard here from King David's Tome, KingDavidKabbalah.com, and we are in Parashat Shelach Lecha, outside of Eretz Israel, and Korach in Eretz Israel, and with the help of Hashem, we're going to put both of them together and get some Kabbalistic inspiration from the Holy Zohar. So we're starting in Parashat Shelach Lecha, in page 163a. The subject matter here is about Moshe Rabenu, the way he was giving the Torah, the inspiration, divine inspiration to Am Israel, and from that we get a certain understanding on, because we can fathom about the greatness and the level of Moshe Rabenu, and then after that we're going to go to Parashat of Korach and understand even more about the level of the prophecy of Moshe Rabenu compared to any other human being. So the Zohar is giving us here a very interesting description. It says, there was no one that saw Moshe Rabenu because he was covering his face when he came down from Har Sinai the second time. So his face was so shining that it was impossible to look at, and he had to cover his face. By the way, there's a very interesting article about the meaning of that covering of the face in the Ramchal. It's not what we're going to discuss right now, but obviously, like anything in the Torah, the simple story becomes to be a concept that can be understood and given interpretation in different ways, including the Kabbalah and all of the Pardes. Now, in the Zohar, we have a description of how the 7 clouds of glory was surrounding Moshe Rabenu in that point. And Aaron, he was standing in front of the curtain that is below Moshe Rabenu. So that curtain is making a barrier, but is not a total blockage between them, between Moshe Rabenu and Aaron. And then afterwards, there is all of the language of the Zohar, Rashei Metivte, meaning the Rosh Yeshiva, the in plural, Rashei Yeshivot, the heads of the yeshivas, that they would be outside of the parochet. And so there's different levels of barriers, there's different levels of curtains of symbolizing and manifesting the separation between the different levels. So all the rest of the people of Am Yisrael, they would be totally outside of those clouds of glory. In other words, the Zohar here is giving us a description that while Moshe Rabenu was speaking, in giving the understanding, the knowledge of the Torah to Am Yisrael, every person would be in the place according to his levels. So again, the closest to Moshe Rabenu is Aaron, and there is some kind of a differentiation, but it's not full separation between them. And then there is a bigger curtain, heavier curtain between Moshe and Aaron from one side to the leaders of Am Yisrael in the other side, and all of that is under the clouds of glory. And then after that, there is the rest of Am Yisrael that is outside of the clouds of glory. Obviously, we know that there is clouds of glory that are surrounding also all of the camp of Am Yisrael. So obviously, the Zohar here is talking about another set of clouds that are more, let's say, prestige, more higher level of kedusha, of sanctity. And then, in this way, the words of Moshe Rabenu, all of the new knowledge that he revealed, was shining through, and was light that goes through those clouds, and they were actually getting illuminated through the holiness of the words of Moshe Rabenu. And the Zohar here is giving us a very interesting connection between the light that is shining from Moshe Rabenu to and spreads to the direction of Am Yisrael, and how that is coming back and affecting the veil that Moshe Rabenu had covering his face, because his face could not be seen, as we said before, and there was no one that will be able to see them. But the light that comes from Hashem to Moshe Rabenu, so there in that point of connection, the intimacy that is connecting Moshe Rabenu and Hashem, there was no separation, there was no veil. So Moshe Rabenu was saying his words to Aaron, and Aaron would explain them to the leaders of Am Yisrael. And the Zohar is explaining, what does it mean to explain the words of Moshe Rabenu? How could Aaron add words on top of the words of Moshe Rabenu? And the way that the Zohar is explaining it is like a spring. There is a spring that is blocked. The water is not flowing properly. So when you are coming and you are moving the blockage, it seems as if you created a new stream, because you made that stream to be wider. But actually, it is the same original stream. So in other words, when Aaron or anyone else that is loyal to the truth of explaining the Torah is coming to add his own explanation, his own way of how to give it over, is not supposed to move from the source of what is explaining. He's supposed to extend the knowledge of the words that are already there. And that's a big point that many people they unfortunately they don't have that. Anyhow, the opening of that spring that was taking place from Aaron, thus explained that moved afterwards to Yeshua when his time came to be a leader of Am Yisrael. And this is the source of understanding of what does it mean to be a true leader of Am Yisrael, is to be a continuation of the same original stream, to connect to the original spring that is the source of the river that we are all going with. The last paragraph here of this article is talking about the ladies that were there, that they would come to Miriam, and the same way that Aaron was explaining to the leaders of Am Yisrael, the males, Miriam was explaining to the ladies that were leaders in the same way. So it says that they would come to Miriam in the Shabbat nights and the Yom Tov nights, that she will teach them Torah, that she will give them the knowledge. And the Zohar concludes that this generation, it's called Dor De'ah, generation of knowledge, that the flow of the knowledge of the Torah was so strong there, and everybody knew that this is the truth and came to connect with the truth. And with that, we're moving into the Parashat of Korach, which is the current Parashat in Eretz Yisrael, as we said, because that obviously looks like a contradiction. We see that Korach didn't accept the truth of Moshe Rabenu. And that's a big question. How can it be? There's many explanations. The commentaries in the Chumash, you can read what happened there. But we're not here to give those explanations. We're here to get the extra deep understanding of the Zohar. So the Zohar says, if a person is tuning his heart into the higher intention of Hashem, the result of that is gathering his Ruach and Neshama. I'm reading, by the way, from the Parashat of Korach 177a. So he's gathering his Ruach and Neshama, the different levels of his spiritual being. And when all of that is united within the person, then he is ready to say prophecy. Now, the problem is that sometimes it is too much for the physical body. Many prophets we know, when they received their prophecy, their body would collapse. They couldn't handle it. The intensity would be too much. And that's what the Zohar says, quote of Tehillim, Yigva kol basar yechdav, that the end of all flesh comes together, meaning there is a possibility for someone that did not prepare his vessel, his physical body, by performing the mitzvot of the Torah. He didn't do that, and he jumps into prophecy. There is a danger that he will die, that he will lose his life, because he doesn't have the capability, his physical being doesn't have the capability to hold that extreme high intensity divine light that comes to the person in the process of the prophecy. And that's something that we have to understand, that one of the purposes, or the main purpose of the mitzvot of the Torah in the physical level, is to act upon our physical body and the physical world, to prepare them for that revelation that comes when Hashem is increasing the divine inspiration. So everybody wants to have the divine inspiration, but not everybody are ready to dedicate their life for the Torah and the mitzvot. And the result is that there is a gap, there is a big differentiation between how much the body can hold, can take, and the desire of the person to be in that higher level. Anyhow, The Zohar says that when a person dies in this way because of that extra light that he could not handle, so what happens? Hashem have mercy on the person. He doesn't want that the different parts of his spiritual being, nefesh, ruach, neshama, will be lost. And this is the function, one of the functions of the true leaders of Am Yisrael, is to gather that extra light that the rest of the people cannot handle, and holding that until Am Yisrael is ready. And this is the meaning of what Moshe Rabenu was asking Hashem when he was asking for a leader that will come instead of him. He said, give Am Yisrael a leader that will be able to hold their spirit. We'll hold it here for today. Obviously, those subject matters are very, very deep and important, but we cannot cover all of that in one time. That's why we have a long series of those classes. I hope that you got some inspiration from what we spoke today for your own personal journey and the process of growth that you are going through. And obviously, as much as we are dedicated to do the work, also the dirty work, also the work that is not pleasurable, but we understand that we need to do it. As much as we'll do that gladly and with humility, without expectations and so on, it will be more effective and it will help us to get to those levels that we hope to get and receive this inspiration that we want to receive. B'ezrat Hashem. Bracha v'atzlacha, many blessings, and B'ezrat Hashem to be continued. Kol tov.